Welcome to our part 4 of the blood lecture. We had just introduced leukocytes, which are white blood cells. Leukocytes can be divided into granulocytes and agranulocytes. So we'll start with granulocytes. Granulocytes are either neutrophils, eosinophils, or basophils. They are larger and shorter-lived than red blood cells. They contain lobed rather than circular nuclei. The cytoplasmic granules stain specifically with Wright's stain. All granulocytes are phagocytic in some degree. The granulocytes shown here spell out the word BEN, B-E-N. So basophils, eosinophils, and neutrophils are all granulocytes. So starting with neutrophils, these are the most numerous white blood cells. Remember, never let monkeys eat bananas. So never is the largest percentage of white blood cells, so those are neutrophils. They're about twice the size of red blood cells. The granules in their cells stain with both acid and basic dyes. The granules contain either hydrolytic enzymes or antimicrobial proteins called defensins. Neutrophils are also known as polymorphonuclear leukocytes, PMNs, or polys, because the nucleus is lobular. The cell has anywhere from 3 to 6 lobes. Neutrophils are very phagocytic. They're referred to as bacteria slayers. They kill microbes by a process called a respiratory burst. The cell synthesizes potent oxidizing substances like bleach or hydrogen peroxide. Excuse me. The defensin granules merge with the phagosome, and they form spears that pierce holes in the membranes of an ingested microbe. Here is a little short video, oxidative burst. The neutrophils kill microbes by the production of reactive oxygen species, demonstrated here with the dye nitroblue tetrazolium. Okay, so there's a neutrophil surrounding the bacteria, and it is causing a respiratory burst. Again, the neutrophil down here surrounds the bacterium, and it slays it. All right, so here we have from your book all the leukocytes. We have the granulocytes first. Remember BEN, B-E-N. Neutrophils are what we were just talking about. And then we have the agranulocytes over here. So all the granulocytes have granules in their cytoplasm. The neutrophils are multi-lobed. Here they have 3 lobes. They are pale red with blue cytoplasmic granules. Okay, so take a good look at that. You're going to have to be able to identify these. So multi-lobed nucleus, pale red and blue cytoplasmic granules in here. The next type of granulocyte is the eosinophil. It accounts for 2 to 4% of all the leukocytes. The nucleus has 2 lobes connected by a broad band, and it resembles an earmuff. So one way I can remember that this one is an eosinophil is that it does look like an earmuff, and earmuff starts with E, and so does eosinophil. The red staining granules contain digestive enzymes. They release the enzymes on large parasitic worms, digesting their surface. Eosinophils also play a role in allergies and asthma, as well as immune response modulators. So with eosinophils, remember the earmuff, parasitic worms, and allergies and asthma. Here we go with the granulocyte. Again, it has granules. It's a bilobed nucleus with red cytoplasmic granules. The last type of granulocyte we're going to talk about is a basophil. These are the rarest white blood cells, accounting for only 0.5 to 1% of leukocytes. The nucleus is deep purple with 1 or 2 constrictions on it. There are large purplish-black basophilic granules that contain histamine. Histamine is an inflammatory chemical that acts as a vasodilator and attracts white blood cells to the inflamed sites. They act very functionally similar to mast cells. So up here in the corner, we see a basophil. They are rare, and we see how big they are in comparison to the red blood cells. The basophil has a bilobed nucleus. It's purplish-black cytoplasmic granules. Moving on to the agranulocytes, they lack visible cytoplasmic granules. And there's only two types, the lymphocytes and monocytes. Both have spherical or kidney-shaped nuclei. So that's going to be your big clue. Even if you can't tell, is that a granule or not? In the cytoplasm, look for the shape of the nucleus. If it's kind of kidney-shaped or round, it's going to be an agranulocyte. So here we have lymphocytes and monocytes being the agranulocytes. So talking about lymphocytes, they are the second most numerous white blood cell, accounting for 25% of the leukocytes. They are large, dark purples with circular nuclei with a thin rim of blue cytoplasm around them. They're mostly found in lymphoid tissue, like lymph nodes or the spleen, but a few circulate in the blood. They are crucial to immunity. And there's two types of lymphocytes. We have the T lymphocytes, or T cells, and they act against virus-infected cells and tumor cells. And then B lymphocytes, or B cells, give rise to plasma cells, which produce antibodies. Here is a lymphocyte. Excuse me. It is a large spherical nucleus with a thin rim of pale blue cytoplasm. Our next agranulocyte is the monocyte. This is the largest of all the leukocytes, but it only makes up 3 to 8% of all the white blood cells. It has an abundant pale blue cytoplasm, which is seen better here on the bottom picture. It has a dark staining U or kidney-shaped nucleus. It leaves the circulation, enters tissues, and differentiates into macrophages. So remember, M, monocyte, become M, macrophages. They are actively phagocytic cells, crucial against viruses, intracellular bacterial parasites, and chronic infections. They activate lymphocytes to mount an immune response. Here we have the monocyte. It looks very U-shaped or with a dark nucleus, and it's very large. Again, you're going to need to know and be able to identify the different leukocytes and determine if they're granulocytes, agranulocytes, their relative amounts, and the special things about them, how they work. So the production and the lifespan of leukocytes. Leukopoiesis is the production of white blood cells, and it's stimulated by two types of chemical messengers from the bone marrow and mature white blood cells. So leukopoiesis is stimulated by interleukins, which are numbered, for example, IL-3, IL-5, and also colony-stimulating factors, or CSFs, and they're named for the white blood cell type they stimulate. For example, granulocyte CSF stimulates granulocytes. All leukocytes originate from hemocytoblast stem cells that branch into two paths. So there's a lymphoid stem cell, and they produce lymphocytes, and the myeloid stem cells produce all the other elements. So continuing on the production of leukocytes, granulocytes production go in this manner. We have myeloblasts, which arise from the myeloid-lined stem cells. They become promyelocytes, which accumulate lysosomes, which then become myelocytes, which accumulate granules. Myelocytes become band cells. In band cells, the nuclei form a curved arc. And then a mature granulocyte, the nuclei become segmented before being released in the blood. 10 times more are stored in bone marrow than in blood. And 3 times more white blood cells are formed than red blood cells because white blood cells have a shorter life, cut short by fighting the microbes. Monocytes are derived from the myeloid line. So a monoblast becomes a promonocyte, becomes a monocyte. They share the common precursor with neutrophils, and they can live for several months. Lymphocytes are derived from the lymphoid line. T lymphocyte precursors give rise to immature T lymphocytes that then mature in the thymus. B lymphocyte precursors give rise to immature B lymphocytes that mature in the bone marrow. So T lymphocytes, remember T matures in the thymus, also starts with a T. B lymphocytes mature in the bone marrow, starts with a B. Lymphocytes can live from a few hours to decades. This figure 17.11 shows the leukocyte formation. So all of these leukocytes come from the hematopoietic stem cell, or the hemocytoblast, sorry. And that divides into the lymphoid stem cell line and the myeloid stem cell line. The lymphoid stem cell then goes to the lymphocytes, the B and T lymphocytes, the precursor, which then matures into B lymphocytes in the bone marrow, which eventually becomes plasma cells. The T lymphocyte precursor matures in the thymus, becoming T lymphocytes, and some of them become effector T cells. The myeloid stem cell line, we have the myeloblasts and the monoblast. So let's start with the monoblast, since that's the odd one. That becomes the promonocyte, becoming the monocyte, and some of them become macrophages. And remember, all of these are agranulocytes. The myeloblasts become promyelocytes. The promyelocytes then become eosinophilic myelocytes, basophilic myelocytes, and neutrophilic myelocytes. They all become band cells of the same type. So the eosinophilic band cell, basophilic band cell, and the neutrophilic band cell, which then finally develop into the granulocytes. All right, a homeostatic imbalance. Many hematopoietic hormones like EPO and CSFs are used clinically. They can stimulate bone marrow of cancer patients receiving chemotherapy or stem cell transplants. They also are used to increase the protective immune responses of AIDS patients. Some leukocyte disorders. The overproduction of abnormal white blood cells are called leukemias or infectious mononucleosis. Abnormally low white blood cell count is called leukopenia. This can be drug-induced, particularly by anti-cancer drugs or glucocorticoids. For the leukemias, leukemias are a cancerous condition from the overproduction of abnormal white blood cells. It usually involves clones of a single abnormal cell. They're named according to the abnormal white blood cell involved. The myeloid leukemias involved myeloblast descendants, and lymphocytic leukemia involves lymphocytes. Acute leukemias are quickly advancing, and it's derived from the stem cells. This primarily affects children. Chronic, slowly advancing leukemia involves the proliferation of later cell stages and is more prevalent in older adults. Without treatment, all leukemias are fatal. Immature, non-functional white blood cells flood the bloodstream. Cancerous cells fill the red bone marrow, crowding out other cell lines, which leads to anemia and bleeding. And that's the main problem here. By not having the other stem cell lines, death usually occurs from internal hemorrhage or overwhelming infections because you don't have enough white blood cells to diminish the infection, and you don't have the platelets to stop the hemorrhage. Treatment includes irradiation, anti-leukemic drugs, and stem cell transplants.